and also professionals. We would also be taking you through to meet our panelists, telling you the pathways on getting the job, and actually giving you a brief of some certain finance technical interview questions. And just like we always do, there'll be opportunities for Q&A. If you would like to ask any questions before the end of the webinar, please ensure you type your questions in the chat box, and there'll be a consultant in there to answer your questions. If your questions cannot be answered, our panelists will take it after the webinar. So thank you so much again for joining us. Just like I said, my name is Tommy. I'm also known as Anu. That's my second name. I'm an MBA alum of the Ohio State University Fisher College of Business. And I started Titanial Consulting a little over a year ago because I identified gaps in talent and actually the kind of opportunities that they're able to get to. I'm honored to be speaking to all of you today, and it's always a dream come true every webinar when I get to talk to bright minds like you guys. So a brief about what we do at Titanial Consulting. We help students advance their academic journey, or working professionals advance their career journey. We do admission services prep for all grad school students. Yes, we are focused on MBAs, but we have consultants that handle other master's degree programs and even PhDs. We work with you one-on-one to ensure that you put your best foot forward in submitting your grad school application. These include, but not limited to, your resume reviews, your essay reviews, how to get application fee waivers, how to actually have initial conversations with the admissions committee, and how to nail your admissions interview, which is a very important part of you getting into the school with funding. But we don't stop there. We actually push it forward with career services. As an international student in a new country, sometimes, or most of the time, it's quite difficult for you to find your footing, to getting a job, to interviewing, and actually networking. This is where we come in, and we offer internships and full-time job search coaching. We help you with your resume so your resume can cut through any system. We'll help you with interview preparations, whether it's behavioral, case, finance technical base, marketing technical base, or product management technical. We also help you with career conferences preparation, like the National Black, Prospanica, Rumba, Forte Conference, where a lot of international students have been able to get amazing opportunities. If you would actually like any of our services on here, or you'd like to talk more on something you don't find here that we probably do, send us an email at coaching@titanialconsulting.com or at anu@titanialconsulting.com. And yeah, the subtitle is funny, so I hope you guys are having a nice time laughing. Always remember, type your questions in the chat box. So today we are actually getting 3 investment bankers to share their experience on how they got their jobs in banking and walk us through their journey. Samuel Foshuhene is an MBA candidate at Darden, University of Virginia. He interned at Barclays this summer, and he will be returning full-time upon graduation in 2021. Tomi Abiodun is presently an EFX trader at UBS Switzerland. He has worked at UBS for about 5 years and actually started in the technology division of the bank. He is also pursuing his master's in international business administration at the University of London, and he will be completing his program in 2021. And finally, we have Abiola Owoniyi. Abiola is an MBA 2018 alum from Monroe College, New York. He has been with JP Morgan for nearly 2 years and works as an investment banking associate. Now, you're going to have the opportunity to get to know our panelists in detail and what they do and their background. So if you have any questions at any point, please type your questions in the chat box. So we will be taking you through pathways to getting the job. I'm sure you're not new to any of the things listed here. The power of your resume, very important for investment banking. How to network. Actually, how to set up informational interviews. The pre-MBA opportunities in banking available, and how to nail the interview. This really seemed like, oh, pretty easy. I'm sure most of us feel like we have got it all covered. But if you really want to get the investment banking job, you have to do more than just thinking you've got it covered. You actually have to work really hard. So the first step to getting the job is your resume. And for most people, I'm sure you wonder, how possible would it be for you to get into investment banking without a previous banking experience? Well, I wouldn't exactly put it that it's a bed of roses or is simple or is so easy, but I can tell you for a fact that it is achievable. Your resume itself speaks volumes, and you should be able to call out skills that can be easily transferred from what you do right now to what you would like to do in banking. So for example, to be a very successful investment banker or investment banking associate, you must have good analytical skills. But you don't exactly need to be in banking or in finance to showcase the analytical skills. If your experience is previously in marketing or in sales or business development, or even in fashion designing, what you do is highlight times where you use analytics to come up with a strategy, or when you crunched numbers to come up with the appropriate price for a service or a solution. These are the types of skills that you can highlight on your resume, even if you don't have a banking experience. Those are transferable skills. So you need to know that your resume is very powerful. And how you craft it, how you put your best foot forward, is actually your first step in landing that job. Secondly, networking. So networking is a big part of your journey to investment banking. If a lot of people from other roles have been able to get into their roles without even networking one bit, I would say it's almost impossible for investment banking. You need to network. And not just because you want to get an interview. Networking is much more than that. It is genuinely getting to know the people, genuinely learning about what they do, and seeing if it's a good fit for you, which is very, very important. I'm sure you think, oh, like, what's a fit? There are things that companies do, there are values that companies are associated with that probably go in line with you or it doesn't. Having these early conversations with people and networking with them gives you that ground to know that, okay, I want to keep pursuing interest in this company, or no, I don't think this company aligns with my own values and my own goals. Sometimes a lot of us think that, oh, networking is very, very difficult or it doesn't make sense. It actually makes all of the sense. So think about it. Imagine you being able to get a sneak peek into the roles before you land it. It gives you enough context. It actually gives you a fantastic background during your interviews. So you can talk to your interviewers, letting them know the amount of people you've spoken to, the specific things that you've learned that the people you've networked with have said to you. Those kind of things are very important in your interview. It also helps you with your interview stories. So interview stories are very important. So you are trying to see, if they ask me a question of how do I display leadership or how do I create something, how do you craft that story in line with that particular role? Well, you could do it either way. But if you speak first and network with a lot of people, you actually will get a context of what leadership really means for them at this company. What does creativity mean for them at this company? And that way, you are able to tailor that into your answer. It's going to be very different if you do not network with anybody and then you just get into the interview and start talking about leadership in a way that is so different from the company. That is a recipe for disaster. So learning through experiences, learning through people's stories and engagements through networking is a catalyst for you achieving success, landing the interview, and actually getting the job. So on the remaining aspects of getting the job and landing the interviews, we will be learning through the experiences of our panelists. So Samuel, thank you very much for accepting to join us today. We're very happy to have you. How are you?
Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Tommy?
Hi, Samuel.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Samuel.
Oh, okay. Um, okay. It looks like a lot of people can hear me. So I'm actually honored to be on this webinar. I mean, Tommy is a very good friend of mine. She actually helped me a lot during my MBA applications, and so when she said she wanted me to join this webinar, I couldn't say no. And I actually know a couple of people on this webinar. I think we've connected on LinkedIn before, so it's really a pleasure to be on here. Um, a bit background about myself, and yeah, to answer your question, I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well.
Great.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So I guess I could talk about, my background and how I got into Barclays and how it all happened. So before MBA, I was working as a financial advisory associate in a boutique investment banking firm in Ghana, doing capital raising and M&A. But that is not to say that my background is what got me into the job, and we'll talk about it later. So before be, before getting into the boutique investment banking firm, I had my undergrad in the University of Ghana where I did accounting, and then after my undergrad, I got a job in this firm, this same firm that I'm talking about, to do accounting. So I wasn't really employed to do anything finance. But after about a year in the accounting, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. For the accountants on here, I'm sorry to say this, but the work just looked so monotonous to me. Like I felt like I was doing the same thing every day. And so there was this one time that I approached one of the analysts there, and he was working on this huge Excel sheet with so many numbers. I didn't know what it was because I was always using accounting softwares. And I asked him, and he said that was called a financial model, and that he was trying to value a company using DCF. Those were all alien terms to me. So like I became so interested in how can you even value a company when you don't know where the company is going to be in the future? And so I started learning about all those things myself. And After about a year in accounting, I approached the managing director and told him that I think I want to do what they do in the financial advisory department. So then he, gave me a couple of resources. I signed up for the CFA program and wrote the level one, became confident that I can do it. And yeah, that's how I landed my first job as an analyst in the firm. And then I left the company as an associate. But before coming to Darden, or after I got admission into Darden, I heard about the Barclays Ambition Program, which is one of the pre-MBA opportunities that we will talk about. And you know, I had a couple of people. The analyst who I tried to study from at that time had also finished Yale School of Management and was working full time at Barclays. So he helped me with the process of like trying to set up informational interviews, trying to set up coffee chats with the bankers, and how to navigate through the banking recruitment, which is very, very, very different from what we are used to as Africans or like professionals working in Africa. And so he helped me a lot. I got into Barclays, did my internship with them about this over this summer, and I got my full-time offer to return to the company last week. So that is a bit about me and how I got into banking and where I am heading towards,
Great,
next year.
great. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you. So you've given us a brief on how your summer went at Barclays. I just want to ask, did you do it in person or was it a virtual internship?
Yeah, I did my entire internship from my closet. So I had a walk-in closet, and I was living in a two-bedroom apartment with some other roommates, so I couldn't set up my office in the kitchen. Or he was also working at McKinsey, so like
Oh,
we were all like always around, not sleeping early and all those things. So I needed some privacy in my room, and so yeah, I set up my office, did the entire internship from my room because COVID decided to mess this whole year up. So I guess.
yeah, I know. I totally
Yeah,
get that. I've been working from home since March, and
yeah.
sometimes I go from my room to my living room, and I don't know where next I'm going to be working out from. So, what do you think of the culture at Barclays? Is it what you expected?
Mm. So I mean, one thing that you should always look out for is it's I think it's like an overused word on the Wall Street, culture of the bank, but it is probably the most important thing that you should always look out for. What is the culture of the bank that I'm going to work with, right? So when I started my Barclays application process, the people that I spoke to, I liked so much. I actually got into the final stage of Goldman Sachs, no, Morgan Stanley, but I wasn't getting the kind of traction that I was getting with the people at Barclays. They seemed like they genuinely cared about you and wanted you to be a part of the bank. And for me, that was what I was looking for, right? Like, as an international student coming in, you're going to battle with a new working environment. You're going to battle with, some complex, because maybe sometimes you may feel like you're not as smart, or your accent might give you in. People constantly ask you, what did you say? And so I wanted an environment where they it looked like they were making the conscious effort to meet me halfway. And that was the kind of culture that I at least experienced during my interview and application process. And I'm glad to say that when I started working in the bank, even though it was virtual, I could still feel the culture. Like, I had my assignee analyst and assignee associate and managing director checking in on me every time. Hey, how is this project going? Do you like it? Do you want to work on another sector? There is this earnings call happening. Do you want to listen to it? And like, they took so much interest in my development and gave me like constant feedbacks, which I think was very helpful to me getting the full-time offer. And so the Barclays culture was great. It was what I expected, and I think it's one of the main reasons why I decided to accept the full-time offer.
Awesome. Great, great. So nice to hear that you had a very good experience.
Mhm.
Well, we're still on networking. I started out by explaining the importance of networking, how
Mm-hmm.
it's very good to genuinely get to know people
Yeah.
and genuinely get to learn about the experience.
Right.
I'd like you to give us more context on informational interviews. So I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what are informational interviews and how do I go about scheduling these?
Mm.
What are the steps you would advise a prospective investment banking applicant to take in setting up informational interviews?
Right. I mean, that's a great question. So this is how I think everyone should think about informational interviews. By its name, it means you are trying to find out more information about the bank. But really, what informational interview is trying to get someone in the bank to advocate for you and say, listen, I want Sam in this bank. I feel like he's going to be a good fit. The thing about investment banking, you always hear it, is that it is a very high touch industry. By high touch, what it means is that you need to know people. So if you think about whom you know in Africa is like times 10 in investment banking. People need to like you. People need to love you before they will be able to comfortably tell the recruiting team or the campus recruiting team that, listen, we have a couple of names, but we've checked this guy's name as someone who'll be a great fit. And so when you are setting up informational interview, at the back of your mind, it should be that, how do I get this person to like me? And I'm not saying fake it because they can see through the bullshit, excuse my French, but when you are having the conversation, right, you should at least make it known that you are interested in the person and in what the person does, and given the opportunity, you would want to be like the person. Maybe that's not your plan, but that's how you make it look like. And so, if you want to set up an informational interview, aka trying to get an advocate for yourself in the bank, I think the first thing that you can, or the first common interest that you can fall on would be the school that you are coming from. So let's say you are coming from Darden, you are coming from Ohio State. First, look out for people in the target banks the banks that you are targeting, who went to your school or are alums of your school. And I mean, what is the best, if you haven't started school yet, the best tool available for you at that moment would be LinkedIn. So you go on LinkedIn, you search for Ohio State University Barclays, Ohio State University JP Morgan, Ohio State University UBS, right? And if you find someone who went to your school and works in that bank, then you send the person a short, don't send like a paragraph messages. Just send like a short message that, hey, my name is blah blah blah. I have admission to Ohio State University. I'm interested in banking. I could see from your profile that you also went to OSU and is in banking. And so, I would like to, if you have some 15 minutes or 30 minutes, I would like to have set up a virtual coffee chat so we talk about your experiences in the bank and how you got into the industry. Simple like that. You might get replies or you sometimes you might not get replies because not everyone is on LinkedIn every time. But for those who are on LinkedIn, I guarantee you they will reply you and try and find some time to talk to you. And so when you reach out to them like that, and then you finally get some time to chat, just make sure that you have done at least some research about the bank, what they do, or the person, what he does. uh don't go into too much detail when it comes to the person, because people find it creepy when you start asking them questions that they don't think anyone knows. And so, like, maybe you may put a pause on the person research and go more into the company and the different verticals, or like groups that they are in. And if you have a group in mind, let's say you are currently working on techno telecommunication projects, and so that has made you more interested in telecom. And so when you get into the bank, you may want to work in a telecom group. That's fine. But if you don't have any group to, that's fine. You just want to know what the person does, how the person's experience has been so far, and how you can, with your background, get into that same position. So research about the bank. Don't go and ask very basic questions that you could just get with Google search. So personally, like this is how I did it. When I have the call with the person, I know it's difficult, especially when you don't know the person or you've never met the person. So after like 5 minutes of chit chat, asking where the person is working from, especially in this new virtual environment, where are you working from? How, when according to your estimation, do you think COVID you go back to the office? Those kind of small chats. After doing that, then I told the person, listen, I this is something that I want to do in the long term. And so I was looking for people who have done it um, for the longer term. I had to do those kind of informational even while I was doing my internship, because it's part of the ways to get your full-time offer. So you ask them, like you tell them you just want to know what their experience has been so far, how they like the bank so far, and what did they do to get to their position. And then you hear them start talking about themselves for like 30 minutes, and that's your time. You don't really have to ask so many questions. So yeah, when you get to set up informational with someone, at least try to research about the firm, and try to at least, even if you're not interested in the person, try to make it look like you're interested in the person. In that, and they always say fake it till you make it, and that's how people get like good offers. They act like they are interested in you until they get their offer, right? So you ask like questions about the person's background and how the person got into that position, and what kind of advice the person can give you, especially for someone who is looking at doing this for the longer term. And then you find a person talking so much about himself, and the next thing, and before you end every call, try to tell the person to connect you to another person. That's how at least they remember you, even if they were busy that day and almost forgot about the call. Once you kind of agreed with them that you want them to connect you to someone else, you can always send up a follow-up email. If the person doesn't, you don't hear back from the person after a day or two, and say, hey, I was wondering if you can still connect. And that's how they remember you. And they talk about people they talk to in the bank. And so, like, one thing that I heard from one managing director that apparently they all use is called the airport test. The airport test, and I'm sure they use it in every industry, that if I am stuck at the airport and they said because of COVID my flight is delayed for 8 hours, and I'm with this person who says he or she wants to work in my bank, would I be looking at my phone for the next 8 hours, or we can actually have something to talk about? And that's the kind of person you want to come across as, someone that you can spend 8 hours with and talk about almost anything. And you may have to vary the kind of conversation topics you talk about. Politics, of course, every parent will tell you politics is off, because you don't know where people's political stands are. But like, always find interesting conversations that you can have with people during informational, because the point is not to show them that you are good technically. Anyone at all can do the investment banking job. Tommy said something about, like, do you have to have a finance background? Absolutely no. 110%, you don't need to have a finance background. I know someone who was a librarian. She was managing books, and she went to JP Morgan. You don't need to have like a finance background, even though maybe when it gets to the technical side. But then there are books that you can always read. So they are not really looking for someone who can answer the most technical question or do the best DCF or uh, uh, public comps analysis or whatever. They are just looking for someone that they can stay in the office from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. with, 1 a.m. with, or 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. with, or whatever time bankers work these days. And that's all they are looking for. And you should try and be the person. That's why the airport test is very important to them. I don't know if the other panelists may have something to say when is their time, but for me, I think that's the most important thing. Trying to show the bankers that when given the opportunity, you'll be a very good colleague with them
Great.
in the office.
Great. Thank you for all of those shots of wisdom, Samuel. So I know you got your Barclays offer before you resumed at business school.
Mm-hmm.
How exactly did you do this, and how important is leveraging pre-MBA opportunities for a prospective applicant? So I'm asking this question for people that are that plan to resume their MBA in fall 2021.
Mm-hmm.
What are the kind of things that they should do to land an offer even before starting classes in the fall?
So yeah, I mean, with the pre-MBA opportunities, you just think about it as normal campus recruitment, just that you've been given like the opportunity to do it earlier before everyone jumps on it. So you're going to go through the same process of networking and trying to, act interested in people and all those things. It's going to be the same. But I think the benefit is that for you as, an African or international student or a diversity candidate, they are now saying that, affirmative action, before everyone jumps on the bandwagon, we are giving you the opportunity to have a step forward. And you should take it as the bank's effort to get talented people like you. And so when you get your offer, or if you already have your offer, I would say that right now you should start looking out for banks. If you want to do only investment banking, you should start looking out for banks that have those kind of opportunities. I know JP, Barclays, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, almost all the banks actually have pre-MBA opportunities. And start talking to people, because that's like the first step. You should start talking to people who are like in the banks that went to your school. If you don't find any, look for African candidates who are, or African people with African background who are in the banks, and start talking to people and sending them information and trying to get them to connect you to other people. When I started working at Barclays, there was this folder that I checked out, and it was called recruiting. And you see that, like, they have everyone that they've ever talked to's name and what like 6 people think about that person. And so, like, you see, oh, this guy doesn't like this guy. This guy likes this guy. That's all they do. And if you are able to get like as many people, you talk to as many people, and you are able to get as many people to like you, that's it. You get your interview, and your only responsibility would be to ace that interview. So right now that you have the offer and you are looking at 2021, I would say make a list of your target banks and start speaking to people and try and get them to be your advocate in the bank. And I think I saw a question about affirmative action. So it's basically for people of like diversity backgrounds, and you qualify as an African,
Yeah.
and and then the African Americans are African American descent. So sometimes on the applications you see the classifications. There's African and then there's African American, and sometimes they just put it together, African stroke American or something like that. So like you actually qualify for it.
Yeah, great. Great. Thank you, Samuel. So before we move on to our panelists, Tommy, if Samuel, you could just share very, very, very briefly, how many rounds of interviews did you go through? And were your interview questions purely finance technical questions, or did you get a mix of behavioral interviews?
Mm. All right. Yeah, this is not to scare you, but I did 7 interviews, and
7 rounds.
yeah, 7 rounds of interviews.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first 4 rounds are actually all behavioral interviews. I think in the fourth round, that was when they asked something slightly technical, but it wasn't really technical. It was like, what do you think is going on in the market right now? I think it was the China-US trade war. So I got something to talk about. But yeah, the first 4 rounds of interviews are all behavioral. Why banking? Why Barclays? Why whatever bank you're applying to? And tell us about the time when you exhibited leadership position. Those kind of behavioral questions are what you're going to face, and it will be repetitive. They just make a lot of people talk to you just so they can have a correct assessment of who you really are. That's the whole point. So you find I did my first 2 rounds of interviews like 2 days, like in 2 days, the first day, the second day. They were basically the same thing from different people, right? and then the
Okay.
third one, and then the fourth one, and then the final one, which is called the super day. That's when it's fully technical. But by the time you get to the super day, or you have an idea that you get to the super day, there are books that you can actually read. I know I'm sure most of you know about the 400 questions measures and inquisition IB book. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can just get that book, read through, like go through it thoroughly, and you'll be fine for your technical interviews.
Great. Great. Thank you very much, Samuel. Thank you so much. So
Yeah.
now we're moving over to Tommy C. Abiodun. Hi, Tommy. It's nice to connect with you. How is Switzerland?
Hi, Anu. Thank you very much. It's nice to connect with you as well. I think for me, the first thing I would say is, thank you for having me on this webinar. And, very similar to Samuel, I think, when you told me there was basically no say no, and I'm really happy to be here. And I think I also want to thank everybody who's taking time to actually join in as well. I think and I hope, this would be of benefit to you, as you start your MBA journey or as you're looking towards going into investment banking. As you asked, Tommy, Switzerland, it's fine. We've had a very warm summer so far. So what tends to happen here is we tend to have very warm summers and very cold winters. So you get a bit of extreme on both sides, but it's been really good so far. Thank you very much.
Nice. So great. Thank you once again. I've seen that your experience so far has been really interesting. And we would like to learn more about your journey. So what exactly is your role at UBS? I know you're an EFX trader, but could you give us a little bit of context?
Yeah, sure thing. So my role is basically as an EFX trader at UBS. And what this basically means for us within the bank is I'm an electronic trader trading FX spot and non-deliverable forwards. And this is basically risk managing our books for that portfolio. Since the financial crisis, there's been a massive push from regulators to get trading to be more electronic, more automated, more algorithmic. And what a lot of banks have done over the last few years is to push the business towards that area and get algos to do more of the trading rather than humans, where you tend to have, the issues of conflicts of interest, etc. So basically, I work on the EFX trading desk. We principally risk manage the spot and the non-deliverable forward risk for the bank. One of the good things about doing an electronic trading role is, all we do is basically data-driven. This is very different compared to your very classic voice trader who all they do is basically trade all day. So for us, what we do entails a lot of data analysis. We get to work with a lot of data, a lot of different tools. It definitely helps if you have some technical background or you have the aptitude to actually learn that side of things. The role also entails, we work very closely with our sales folks as well to work with the clients to make their trading flow, their trading pattern actually better for themselves and for also the liquidity providers like the banks, which I work in one of them. And basically, the core of the role is risk management, making sure that we can manage our risk, and all that we do is within the risk parameters that have been set for us. Obviously, within a trading role, you have revenue and P&L objectives, and what we do is to try our best to make sure we can achieve that. And in the end, being an electronic trading role, it's making sure that our algos are able to trade in the best way that they can. And within my role as well, one of the very unique things is, even though it's a trading role, you have the opportunities to actually work on different projects across the bank. You can work on revenue generating projects. So for example, the electronic NDF business that we've been working on in the last year and a half, it's basically the bank putting a lot of investments to make sure we can trade a lot of NDFs electronically, which historically wasn't the case. So you have the opportunity to work on projects like that. You can also work on technical projects.
Uber so that we can just go to we don't have a car.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to leave the car I have.
Sorry, I'll just mute Samuel.
I'm gonna stay here.
All right. Sorry about that. So yeah, we also have the opportunities to work on projects where you migrate application from legacy systems to more strategic systems within the bank. So it's a very fun role, very data driven, and every day brings basically a lot of challenges, because you can imagine how the market has been. I think for those of you who have followed in the last few months, We had the situation in March where the spreads in the market were wider than they normally were. And in the last few months, for example, we've had precious metals being super volatile, which brings a lot of different challenges. But I think for me, it's been really fun. And that's basically what I do in the bank. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy. That's really insightful. So I can see based on your experience that you worked in the technology division before moving to trading. What triggered that move?
So what triggered that move? I would say relationships. So for me, after working within the tech part of the bank for about 4.5 years, I got to the point where I was considering the next steps for myself or what to do. The role I was in was really, really good. It was very close to the business, but I was thinking of how could I get closer to the business, out of a support sort of function to something closer. And at that point, I started to leverage some of the relationships I had. There were conversations I had going on with different people about potential opportunities that I could actually move to within the bank. But the one for the trading role actually came out, I would say, as a bit of a surprise. I would say it was an opportunity that came around, but thinking about all of it, I think for me the relationships I had actually built played a big part in me being able to get that role.
Awesome. That actually, your answer is is very directly correlated to the next question. So we're gonna ask you, how did networking play a role in you getting the new role? How did you leverage your connections?
Okay, so networking played a big part, like I mentioned earlier. So my current manager and I, we met at the gym at work. Basically, we had gone there a few times, working out side by side. I didn't know him really at that point. I sort of saw what he did from a distance, but I really didn't know it in depth. But what tended to happen over time was we got talking, just little bits of conversations. It's not like we were best friends or anything like that. But I think what then happened was he got to know me, I got to know him as well. And within my time in the tech part of the bank, I got the opportunity to actually move into the IT support team that supported his business. And what then happened was, I was able to add value to him and the team from actually doing what I did. So, I knew him already. Every once in a while we had chats. It's not like we're having coffees every week. Traders hardly have the time to do that. But we had that knowledge of each other. And basically what I was able to do for my role was to add value. So something I pushed for when I moved to my, to the IT support role that supported the business was to become the subject matter expert for FX pricing related topics within the FX space at UBS, basically. So my previous manager moved into a managerial role and I basically stepped into his shoes. And then what happened was I got to work on a lot of projects that involved working with the traders directly, interacting with different product managers, project managers, working with different teams, and also solving all the ad hoc queries that the trading desk had. So over time, we developed that relationship of trust. I was definitely able, I believe, to add value to him over time. And how did I leverage this when I actually got the role? I would say it worked in reverse in this case, but obviously there's a couple of things I took from there. So when there was an opportunity to actually get into the front, into the front office role, my current manager actually told me about the opportunity. So rather than me in this case being the one to go and ask for it, he actually asked me about it. But I think something that I took away from that was, I knew him already, I added value. I think something I could have done, thankfully it worked out in this case for me, but approaching is also a next step. When you've added value to people, when you've, you know them, I think in life, you tend not to get what you don't ask for. So I got the opportunity when there was an opening, he told me about it. And basically the interview process was a lot different compared to if I was an external candidate or someone who had to move from a different industry, etc. And what happened was, because of the relationship and the knowledge I had of the other managers of the team globally, my interview process was a lot more different than you would normally expect. And I was able to leverage the relationship I actually had with those people during the interview process that actually started full-time in the role.
Great, awesome. So thank you so much, Tommy. So quickly, before we move on to Abiola, if you could just tell us, if you didn't get the role as an FX trader, what would be your next best thing?
Yeah, so that's quite an interesting question. At the point when I got the role, I think at that point, like I mentioned, I was already considering the next steps for my career, and I had started leveraging some of the relationships I had with people in areas that I actually wanted to move to. My focus then was to move into the product management slash project management area of the bank because I felt that was a lot closer to the front office business. And also because within my role in the tech space, I had worked on a lot of projects with many of the senior people in those areas. I actually have started leveraging it. So for me, working in product management slash project management, I think for me would have been the next best thing. But I think I got the next thing actually better than that in the end.
Nice. Thank you so much, Tommy. Thank you very much. So now we'll be moving on to our final panelist, Biola Owoni. Biola, thank you for accepting to be a panelist with us today. How you doing?
I'm awesome. Thank you, Tommy. Appreciate the opportunity that has been given to me
Great.
today. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So we would like to ask you a few questions, just like we've asked the other panelists. So could you tell us more about you and what exactly you do at JP Morgan Chase?
Yeah, so I'm an associate with the product control at JP Morgan. The product control with the fixed income desk, and we trade everything like currencies, interest rate swaps, and options. But I'm with the product control, which means we validate like the P&L and the risk, the models, and the kind of risk the desk is taking on the bank as a whole. So like from time to time, we try to have this kind of back and forth with the trading desk. So like after 2008, they kind of drew a line between the trading desk and the product control team to make sure that the trading desk doesn't just partner with the product control, but that we're actually meant to fact check them and check their models and check their trading and check the risks they're putting on the company. So a typical day is always very, very tough between the trading desk and product control. So I kind of confront traders every day for a living and, check what they are doing, argue about their P&L, calculate their risk, their positions, and, try to also come up with strategies for the desk to say, okay, this is actually what is taking more of your money or your balance sheet. And, so yeah, basically put the bank in a very good position, balance sheet wise. And yeah, so that's what I do daily.
Great, awesome. So we'd like to know, you graduated in 2018 from Monroe College, New York. I'd like to know, how did you get your job? Was it through university recruiting? And what do you think really played a significant role in you landing your offer at JP Morgan?
I actually had my background in engineering. And so in my undergrad, I read engineering. I stumbled on a book that made me feel like, oh, I should go and do an MBA in finance. So I applied to my school, got in, I finished my MBA, but I just I had a very sincere market obsession. I was obsessed with the market, with whatever was going on in the economic, culture or economic cloud of the United States or the world in general. So I guess when I was done with school, I started working for this asset management firm. It was very small, so it was very handy. They were into some kind of debt and financing and those kind of stuff. So I kind of got my hands dirty with them. But later on, I kind of I submitted my resume on this NABA platform. And I wasn't really expecting much because prior to that time, I had applied to, like everyone will have had the experience. I applied to Goldman Sachs like 50 times, JP Morgan probably like 80 times. I got denied every single time. So it was just like, that day-to-day denial. But I got used to it. So I was like, it don't really cost me anything to just keep on submitting. And so I used to do it every day. I wake up, I just pick up my resume, I drop it on one of these stuff, but I always got denied every time. So on the NABA, just like Samuel said, like we all need to check these opportunities that are provided by affirmative action, and some of those. So I applied, and someone called me. I got a call from JP Morgan. I couldn't believe, it was like, this is impossible. I didn't think it was me. They were even calling. So, I picked up the call. I was like, yes, this is me. This is Aviola. Yes, I'm the one. And then from there, we were able to proceed. And I went on later to, I did 18 interviews with JP Morgan, because it was like, after a while, I got into a pool. They kept on, taking it to like different teams, like to just see where I was going to fit in, and up and down, up and down. Eventually, I was able to start my role in product control. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, 18 interviews. I had 7 and now 18. Okay,
Yeah.
good. So I know that for you, you did a lot with submitting your resume, putting yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
What other things did you do? Or you could mention 2 key things that you did to actually make sure that you landed the job. So I know you landed the interview, but what 2 things did you do to make sure you landed the job?
So basically, like I said before, like having a sincere, like one of the things I really did in landing the job was the person who is my current manager right now, and this is what he like at the end of the day, just like to piggyback to what Samuel said, these are people you are going to work long hours with. Like if you are going to invest, like you're going to work long hours, that is for sure. At the end of the day, nobody wants to work with a person that is just like a robot or like a technical person, just sitting beside him, and working all day. They actually want to enjoy who they are working with. People actually prefer to work with somebody who they can go out, have drinks with, like enjoy, have a good laugh, and all like the energy. And that's one thing nobody might ever tell you, but people actually look at your energy and your vibe, and those things you can't place a real. They are intangible assets. You can't really place physical value on them, but it is so true. If they bring in 10 associates or 10 interns, and we're about to choose like who we want, everybody kind of says, oh, this guy, we like him, and everybody just wants that guy to be there. So I think when I went for some of my interviews, that was what my manager kept on saying, like I had this vibe and this and the way I spoke with him was kind of different from the way other people. I was very jovial. I was interested in what he was doing, and that was the day we found out two of us like cooking, like stuff like that. And at the end of the day, you find out when you eventually get into the role, you find out that everybody is human at the end of the day. Like people have down days, people have days where they just don't. If an interviewer interviews you on a bad day, no matter how technical you are or how good you are, based on the fact that their day was terrible, you are going to probably have a very, very, very terrible rating, no matter what. They will ask you very difficult questions. They want to interview anybody on those days. So I think your personality in whatever you're doing is one major key in landing the job. And then also, like, you have to know your stuff. Like, let this thing become like a sixth sense to you, be free, be able to talk about it, be able to talk about it and laugh, even be able to make jokes out of the stuff going on in the financial market. I think that's going to give you an edge, as opposed to someone that crammed everything and then just got there and started spitting it out. Like, and be sincere also, like be able to say, oh, I really don't know that. I can remember there was this director who asked me a question on the bond market, or you asked me a question on options, and I was struggling to answer the question. And then at the end of the day, I told him, like, to be honest, like, I know I put this thing on my resume, but I don't know it. And someone just, started laughing. I told him sincerely, I was like, I know I put this thing on my resume, but that part of, like, there are so many things I put on my resume that I actually know, but this part, I don't know, it's a bit hazy in my mind. And I'm sure that once I step out of the interview, I'm going to remember it. But because he's there now, I can't really remember it. And he just started laughing. And then he gave me an exclusive dinner ticket to come and join them for like the top talents that they chose in that conference. So different people have different experiences, but just be very, very confident about what you know and what you don't know. Great.
Thank you, Abiola. So one last thing before we go quickly, because we are 5 minutes out from ending the webinar. Would you say the investment banking career is fulfilling?
It depends on what fulfillment is and how everybody values fulfillment. If you are somebody who likes your time, or you value your time a whole lot, then you might have to do a lot of trade-offs because you're going to work a lot of very, very long hours. If it's something you are seeing as, okay, this is something I want to do, you know, you want to stack up the money before later on you want to move on to something else that is more like give you more time, then fine. But yeah, for me, it's fulfilling. I've seen people who tell me they can never be in my role. For those kind of people, they wouldn't, you know, consider my role as fulfilling for them. I like to work. I like to know about what's going on. I like to be at the forefront of whatever is going on globally. So for me, I wake up every day like by 4 a.m. and work till like, you know, whatever. And, you know, so for me, it's fulfilling. But to depend, if you're a person that doesn't like to work long hours, then probably it won't be fulfilling for the person, no matter how. And a lot of people have been quitting investment banking recently due to that. Yeah, so.
I guess it's more of what do you want to do? What's important to you? Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Abiola. You're so funny and so interesting.
Oh,
so before we end the webinar today, we can see that interviewing is the last step getting the job. And Abiola provided a lot of context about interviewing. Once you land your interview, how you got to the school you went to, your location doesn't seem to matter anymore. What matters now is how you can nail it. And this is not about speaking English, because a lot of people feel, oh my God, I can speak so good in English. Nobody really cares about that. It's about giving your interviewers what they want to hear. It's about making yourself that person that they want to spend the entire day with. Just like Abiola said, he was talking with his interviewer and they were all laughing, even when he did not know the options question. So that kind of vibe is what you're supposed to bring to your interview. And some of us, I know we have different personalities and some people are just not like that. But you can actually fake it till you make it, meaning you can practice to be like that. If that's the kind of job you want to be in, you have to constantly practice, constantly interview with different people to make sure that you come across like that genuinely when you're talking to your interviewers. So we've listed a few investment banking questions here, and why investment banking, how would you value a company, when should a company consider issuing debt or equity, what makes a good financial model, what's the average PE ratio for the S&P 500 index. These are just a few questions out of many sample investment banking technical questions. We actually have a database of these questions for free, and if you would like to have access to it, just email the team at coaching@titanrconsulting.com or anu@titanrconsulting.com. If you also like us to coach you on how to answer these questions, coach you on how to come up very good at your interviews, send us an email and we will start our services with you. We have the following webinars coming up in September and October. And if you would like to join, please register for our webinars with the webinar sign-on link. I'm sure a lot of you already got that and we will be resending it. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today's webinar. Thank you to our panelists for all of the insights they've provided. It's an honor having three of you actually join us today. It's like I'm on a spotlight for intelligent people. You guys are mind-blowing. Thank you so much. If anyone has further questions after the webinar, or you would like to take questions to the panelists, just send me an email and I will forward your questions to them. Don't let's forget to follow Titanal Consulting on Instagram, Twitter, Skype, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This webinar is recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel within the next week. So if there is anything that you missed and you want to go back to listen to, just go to YouTube and you find it on there. Follow us on Instagram because we always post very interesting, insightful posts every day for you to learn from. So thank you very much today. I'm very happy to be speaking to you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.